Welcome to the weekend edition of Your Morning. Here are some of the stories and conversations we have coming up for you today.
We look at some of the barriers faced by racialized women in the workplace and what can be done to start breaking those down.
Plus, W5's Avery Haines tells us about her investigation uncovering a brazen criminal network.
But first, what's next for the retail sector now that the Hudson's Bay stores have closed? It sounds weird to say, but this morning the Bay is closed. So now the question is, what happens to all that empty retail space?
You come into these stores to experience choice. And so I'm sad about that, but I also am excited about what the future of this particular physical place will be.
So with 96 Hudson's Bay leases up for grabs, experts say an evolving retail landscape is going to make it difficult for landlords to quickly find a replacement. For more on what could happen to those former Bay stores, we're joined this morning by retail expert Bruce Linder. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the program.
As a reminder to everybody, the last Canadian Target and the Sears stores, those closed back in 2015, 2018. Yet we know some of that retail space is still sitting empty. What will the challenges ahead be for spaces like Hudson's Bay and those gaps that they leave in large retail spaces?
Yeah, it's going to be a massive challenge. I mean, every time a big box store closes, you know, it leaves behind sort of that legacy footprint. And to your point, not all of it is filled. So you've already got malls out there where they're struggling to fill the old Targets and Sears. But the good news with the Hudson's Bay story is it sounds like about 28 of the leases or 28 of the spots are going to be used by a billionaire from the West Coast named Ruby Liu, who's going to open up some form of department store. And there's going to be more details on that. The other locations, I believe Canadian Tire and a number of other folks have bid on some of them. So you might see existing retailers sort of pop up in some of the space. But for the leases that aren't really spoken for, it's going to be all over the map, you know, depending on the location of the facility. Some could turn into car dealerships. Some could turn into condominiums, office space, you know, pickleball courts, gyms, all over the map.
Is that maybe what comes to mind when we talk about, you know, Ruby Liu's plan for those 28 Hudson's Bay leases? And she talked about making it a new modern department store. Is that some of the idea?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, we don't have all the details yet. Retail Insider interviewed her a few weeks ago, and she talked about creating almost feels like a mall within a mall, where it's a combination, a fusion of cultural diversity, age diversity. So you're going to have all kinds of age groups there, food, products, and entertainment. So it sounds pretty interesting. I mean, if you look at some of the malls, she owns 3 malls on the West Coast, and they're pretty active in terms of always having events and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what she does. Does she create a prototype first, you know, before she rolls out another 27, or how that's going to work? Everyone's pretty excited about that.
You know, in a lot of communities, mine included, you know, the Hudson's Bay took up sort of that chunk at the end of the mall, right? That's going to sit empty. But for several cities, and, you know, Vancouver and Toronto in particular, you've got these legacy buildings that are historic. The architecture is beautiful. How would that dictate? And they're multi-level, right? They're at least 3 floors. So how would that dictate what could go in that space?
Yeah, I mean, those are absolutely gorgeous buildings. Yeah, it's really going to be up to what happens with the landlords. You know, we don't know what locations Ruby Liu is going to take, but for the other locations, you know, you could put office buildings in there. You could make some really interesting condominiums in some of those old legacy buildings. I mean, that would be sort of a selling feature for buyers. So, you know, we're going to have to wait and see what happens here.
Bruce, you know, it's day one of the Bay being officially closed. What do you think about when you reflect on that?
I feel really sad. I mean, I was out yesterday trying to get into a couple of bays, and I was really sad. And you're right. I mean, think about the last time that we hadn't had a bay was 1670.
Wow.
You know? The world's changed a lot since 1670. So it just feels really weird. It's eerie. It's surreal. I feel for the employees. I feel for the vendors. Yeah. And I feel like we've lost something.
I think everybody feels a bit of that this morning. Retail expert Bruce Linder, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Take care.
Coming up, we hear from W5's Avery Haines about her investigation into a disturbing criminal network.
Sleeping with the enemy. It is a case revealing a horrifying online network. Women being drugged without their knowledge and raped by their husbands and partners.
This is the scariest part, and that's a common point between all victims. Like, we had no idea, we figure he must have drugged us late at night. How can someone...
W5's Avery Haines went undercover for months, exposing this global network of men exchanging videos of drugged and unconscious women, some of whom are their partners, by the way. Her investigation led to the arrest of one man in Ontario, revealing just how easy it is to buy these potent date rape drugs online. For more on her investigation, we are joined this morning by W5's Avery Haines. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Lindsay.
Avery, I caught the pieces on CTV National News that you had done, and I stopped in my tracks, jaw dropped at the information that you were sharing with us. How did you first learn about this hidden online network?
Well, I just want to say as a preface that everything that I say to you now is with a big warning that this is deeply, deeply disturbing. I was first contacted by a victim, a woman who had been abused, tortured for years without her knowledge. And in that case in New Brunswick, it led to an arrest. And I picked up where the RCMP stopped their investigation and continued further to look into who was this man's online friends in this network. And as you mentioned, that led to an arrest. There is now another police investigation that is ongoing in a city in Europe of a man who has become my very evil pen pal, because part of this investigation involved pretending to be one of these men. And the shocking thing to me is when I first started this investigation, I thought this is going to be extremely difficult. I'm going to have to go into the dark web, and the reality is it's all right there. These guys are so brazen because they know that their victims don't even know that they're victims, that they're uploading their crimes on public porn sites, and they're trading it, they're selling it, they're coaching each other on Telegram groups, so messaging app named Telegram, where they're connecting in large groups, telling each other what drugs to buy, helping them buy drugs, how to dose, what to say in the morning if your wife or your girlfriend wakes up and questions why she fell asleep so quickly the night before, or why she feels off in the morning.
It's unbelievable. I mean, you talk about survivors. One survivor's words revealed the horror of what was happening in plain sight. I'll tell our viewers to take a listen to this.
How can someone do that to your partner and then wake up the next day and give them a kiss and be like, good morning, and,
These victims, as you were talking about, I mean, they didn't even know this was happening, Avery.
No, and since our story first broke, because in the midst of this investigation, one of the men who I was friends with online, I came across what I believe to be fairly clear evidence of women being abused and the videos being uploaded publicly, and contacted police. Within days, they made an arrest. And since then, Lindsay, I have been bombarded with emails from people who believe that they too were victims. And this is the really sickening part of this. While there's a great relief that there is an arrest has been made, right now, a huge number of women are finding out that they could potentially be victims in this. And that's the thing, they just don't know.
Well, and I was thinking about, obviously, I remember being horrified when I heard about the case of Gisèle Pellicot. I mean, that was the woman in France we've covered extensively, whose husband had been drugging her for years, allowing men into their home to rape her when she was unconscious. What sort of scale are we talking about here?
The network is huge. The number of men who do this is huge. On public porn sites, there are groups with tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of people who have a fetish about sleep pornography. But then there are many who take that one step further, and if they don't have a willing partner in that, they make their partner an unknown player in this. And it's interesting that you mentioned Gisèle Pellicot, because it's because of her that the women that I spoke to, the victims of this, the survivors of this, decided to reach out to me and to tell their stories. And so the impact of her standing up so bravely and saying, the shame doesn't lie on me, the shame lies on the man who did this to me. Among the many women who've reached out to me, Lindsay, there's a woman, the case is so similar to Gisèle Pellicot's case. Her husband recently died. She's an older woman in Canada. She was going through his belongings, his electronics, and found on the computer that she had been victimized not only by her husband and recorded, but by other men in the community for years, something she found out after his death.
So what do you do with that information as an investigative journalist? She comes to you, you now have that information. What is the next step?
For me, they're reaching out to me to just share their story. She's never told anybody, and I've had really a lot of emails like that from different women across the country sharing very similar stories. You know, there are lots of women that I've spoken to that tell me that they didn't feel like they would be believed, so they never went to the police. There are lots of follow-up questions that people will have that I think answers need to be found for after the documentary airs, because I think there are questions about the way police handle these cases. I was shocked to learn that if there are allegations of a videotaped crime and there are images of women on those tapes, police won't actively try to identify the women that they find in those images. They didn't do it in New Brunswick with the case that involved an arrest. And from the sounds of it, Hamilton Police, the lead investigator there, told me that they would not be actively trying to find out, trying to identify the women in the electronics as they go through their investigation, that it's up to the woman to come forward and say, I think I may have been victimized. Can you look to see if I'm on the videotape? I find that shocking.
Well, because they don't even know, and that's sort of the crux of this report. It is important work. Avery Haines, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ahead on your morning, we have a panel on racialized women on the challenges of navigating the corporate world.
In this country, almost half of Indigenous, Black, and racialized women say their job was impacted because of a lack of opportunities or advancement due to societal racial inequality. That's from a 2024 study by Women Act. They are also facing major pay gaps, underrepresentation in senior roles, and concerning rollbacks on DEI initiatives. So what does this mean for how racialized women navigate the corporate world? We'll have that discussion. We've brought in Herline Aurora, co-founder of South Asian Women's Collective, Golnaz Golnaragi, who is the founder of Accelerate Her Future, and Chichi Ebo, certified career strategist and founder of Workthrough, joining us today. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
I want to start with an overview. You know, in 2021, we saw companies make this concerted effort when it comes to EDI, equity, diversion, and inclusion. We saw more money being put behind those promises, but right now we're seeing this targeted reduction towards those initiatives. Could you share where we stand as of 2025, like right now in May, and what the world currently looks like for racialized women? Golnaz, do you want to take this one?
Sure.
Yeah.
I would say that the current landscape is deeply inequitable for Indigenous women, Black women, racialized women. We are seeing a severe underrepresentation in leadership roles and senior roles, and that's problematic. And from the numbers that we're seeing, that representation could actually trend down and not up, which is a problem. And at a micro level, I would say what I'm seeing is that some organizations, some corporate organizations, are going all in. They're continuing with their efforts. Others are quietly doing the work, and some are actually stepping back, which can have even more dire impact on racialized women.
In preparation for this, I did a little bit of digging into what some corporations are doing, and if they're not rolling it back, then they're taking words like women and racialized out of those initiatives. All three of you are nodding. What's the danger in that?
Well, I'm seeing workforce studies across, I would say, government sectors or public sector, nonprofit sector, and as well as corporate, that white women in particular have benefited from EDI programs and in comparison to racialized women, but they're also achieving more opportunities in career advancement and leadership. And so I would say the harm of rolling back on any programs or diversity initiatives that support workplace policies of inclusion and equity and fair treatment create challenges of actually supporting an aging workforce. So how do you attract diverse talent? How do you retain diverse talent? Yeah. And how do you maintain the workforce needs that Canada needs to grow and build its economy?
Golnaz, you have a doctorate in business administration. So how does the mainstream career development model exclude the needs and experiences of racialized women? This is an important conversation because when a company just looks at women and they don't look at the racialized piece of it, there is a lot of disparity when you do the comparison between advancement of white women and racialized women.
Absolutely. So we are launching a study. We actually asked Indigenous, Black, and racialized women about this very issue, about their career development. And three things, there's lots that came out, I'll focus on three. The first is that there's a fundamental lack of understanding of the needs and lived experiences of racialized Black women, Indigenous women. And so how do you design career development that really targets address the barriers that they may be experiencing. Number two, one-size-fits-all program that are for all people or for women, as Herlene has just talked to, tend to benefit white women. They don't go far enough. That's problematic. And third, the role of people leaders in that conversation, their direct managers, is essential. And so they can either make or break career development if they're not really in tune with who they're working with and their needs.
And I would challenge corporations, go to one of your lunch and learns that are held specifically for women and look at the faces who are in the room and then compare to the positions they have in your company. It's a fast and easy way to realize if you maybe have a problem or something to look into.
100%.
Herlene, StatsCan says South Asians are the largest racialized group that live in this country, 2.6 million of them living here as of 2021. What barriers exist, not just from a structural level, but from a cultural and heritage level as well, and how does that impact young women?
Yeah, so I would say in terms of the context of what we've been doing at South Asian Women's Collective, we've been diving into a 2-year community-based research project to better look at and understand the career development and employment needs of young South Asian women ages 18 to 30 across the GTA, knowing that there's such a limited data and research and evidence on South Asian women and their workforce, which is surprising since it is the largest racialized population. But with our findings and with survey responses, with over 200 survey responses and learning circles with 57 participants, we kept hearing the intersections between culture, gender, and race impacting and influencing education and employment pathways. And one of the major findings through our research was the influence around family and parental relationships with navigating career pathways as well too. And so with young South Asian women, many shared that there is, family is my biggest champion, my biggest support system in thinking about career and employment goals and supporting me, but also the major friction and tension with families' expectations on certain sectors to go into. So we've all heard this: a doctor, lawyer, engineer, those traditional sectors that are very secure and stable in terms of pathways.
That's the trifecta for any South Asian family.
Yeah, and it relates to a lot of actually racialized immigrant families, but then also the other things were the expectations to care for family needs at home, and that's always a gendered expectation on young women, family caregiving with younger siblings or elders in the family household, or even staying close to home to pursue education and training because we want to still keep an eye on you. And so there's a few things there that need to be further analyzed, but one thing I do want to highlight is that immigrant parents' experiences coming into the Canadian workforce and how they were treated with their skills, their assets, their credentials does impact and influence how they put pressures on their children's success. So what they, if they were de-skilled, devalued, and not recognized and their career identity was challenged, then it puts extra pressures and values around success and what that means for their children. And so there is this friction and tension right now on children and family parental relationships.
That's a really interesting point. Chichi, I want to bring this into this conversation. Looking towards the future, how can companies and organizations start putting some action behind their promises of not only EDI, but just as growing their company overall to act with equity at the forefront rather than just talk about it or do head counts, but not necessarily understand who's there in their company?
Yeah, well, promises can only mean so much, but what about the intent and structure behind those promises? That's very important. And in my organization, we encourage workplaces to start to do an assessment early on and figure out where are you starting, how are you falling short? So we have a career development maturity assessment that allows organizations to figure out this is where we're doing well, this is where we're falling short for racialized employees. And once you're able to pinpoint, you can then prioritize. And if you're prioritizing effectively, that means you're looping in the lived experiences of everyone who are racialized, Black women, Indigenous, and you're looping in those lived experiences to design those programs. So, for example, we have a career development and mentorship coaching program called Compass, and it was designed by Black folks, and it was integrated into an organization by partnering with a Black employee resource group. So for one, that ensures that it is rooted in the lived experiences, and it's also backed by tangible, practical frameworks. And then another thing organizations can do to put equity first is definitely train their leaders, right? Leaders play such a huge role in how folks and racialized women can move forward in the workplace, right? Textio releases every year a report on bias and feedback, and Black women are 9 times more likely to get unactionable feedback than white men. So if they're getting unactionable feedback and feedback that focuses more on their personality, using words like passionate, it diminishes their capabilities, their strengths, and they're not sure how they can actually move forward if there's no clear action for them to improve. So training leaders on more of a career-first leadership, I like to call it, how to have that career coach mindset, how to bring the best out of people so we can see that advancement, see those promotions, but ultimately also see that racialized folks and Black women can also get access to upskilling opportunities, opportunities to speak, opportunities to get visibility to be in front of decision makers, and also opportunities to broaden their network too as well.
Ladies, I want to thank you all for being here today. Really important conversation, great points to bring up. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
This world were mine. Hey, Roman numeral 7, babe, drop it like it's hot. If this world was mine, I'd take your dreams and make them multiply.
Anxiety, keep on trying me. I feel it quietly, trying to silence me. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome back to your morning weekend. We hope you've been having a great day.
Just ahead, we're going to be treated to a selection of recipes inspired by 3 different regions of our beautiful country.
Plus, we'll speak with the stars of Atlantic Canada's first ever Black-led sitcom 0 to 60 Driving Academy, which is streaming now, by the way.
But first, a focus on why Canadian home sales are hitting historic lows. The number of homes being sold across the country is slowing down. A new report from the Building Industry and Land Development Association found that in April, new home sales in the Greater Toronto Area declined by 72% year over year. Nationwide, the Canadian Real Estate Association found that total home sales decreased by nearly 10% over the same time period. So for more on what's behind those lagging sales, we're joined in studio by Dave Wilkes. He's president and CEO of the Building Industry and Land Development Association. Good to have you in studio. We've seen you before remotely, so good to have you here.
It's much better to do it this way. Good morning.
I agree. Thanks for coming in. Listen, your report found that new home sales in the GTA have dropped for the last 7 months in a row. That's worse than the historic lows from back in the 90s, so like 3 decades ago. What's driving the decline?
Yeah, you're exactly right. We've seen historic lows. They're at 85% of the 10-year average. There's 2 factors that are driving that decline. One is consumer confidence. I mean, it's no surprise to anybody we're in a period of turmoil, tariffs, et cetera, and people are just sitting on the sidelines waiting to see when that resolves itself.
Yeah.
But it will. At some point in time, it will resolve itself. More fundamentally, we have a cost-to-build crisis, which is a structural problem where the amount of costs and inputs that go into building a new home or a new condo just are too high for a level for the market to absorb, and that's particularly on the high-rise side.
Yeah, and when we talk about the housing industry, so there's the market side of it, which ebbs and flows, but on the industry side of it, how are they adapting to the slowdown?
Right, so without sales, you're not going to have starts. And so last week we saw a number of layoffs within the housing industry, a key economic driver of the economy across the country, but certainly in large urban centers. And from a consumer point of view, if you're not selling product, you're not being able to build it. And so we look forward, in the GTA, for example, in 2027 and 28, we're going to see even less housing coming on market, and it's going to increase the affordability challenges that we're all facing.
Yeah, well, and then this is the problem, right? We've got this desire and this need to build. We've got the cost that it's too expensive, and there in the middle lies where the real tension point is. So Prime Minister Mark Carney made housing as a central point of his campaign. You saw a lot of this. It included a pledge to double the rate of home building to 500,000 homes per year within a decade. So how does that square with what you were just outlining is the cost of building?
Right, so there's a number of things that we believe the Prime Minister and the provincial premiers can do. One in particular is take a look at GST, a PST, or a combined HST. It was first introduced on new homes in 1991, and at that time, 95% of the homes that were built didn't pay, at the time, GST. And there was a pledge that rate, that 450,000 below which above which, you don't pay GST, will be updated every 2 years. That hasn't happened.
Of course not.
That's a key factor, and there's been a lot of conversation on it, which we are welcome to focus, but we need that needs to move quickly.
Well, quickly is a key word because your organization is warning it's going to take years before buyers feel the shock of what's actually happening in the housing market. First of all, how will they feel that? Where are they going to notice it?
There's just not going to be housing delivered. New home sales, as I indicated, we're going to see a shortage of deliveries in 2027 and 28. If you simply updated the GST, if you took it to $1 million threshold, which is what we would suggest that it would be based on inflation over the last 34 years, allowed it to apply to all new homes and those homes that are substantially renovated, that would be a $106,000 saving on a new home. We really believe that would address the cost to build that we've talked about and get the industry back working and delivering homes for Canadians that want to live in our large urban centres and elsewhere.
So the GST is the big one. It's sort of the first move.
GST, PST, we welcomed Premier Ford in Ontario, came forward and said that they would move if the federal government did. So we think there's a tremendous momentum here. We got to get it right, though.
Yeah.
It's got to apply to all new home purchasers and those substantially renovating homes, and it's got to be at a threshold that makes sense, and we're suggesting the first $1 million.
Dave, are you hopeful? Because, you know, we've got these targets of what to build, but we've got the cost that it's expensive. You've got a cautious market of people saying, I don't know if I want to put the money in. And we also have on the industry side, you mentioned job losses. Listen, this is supposed to be one of those make work projects for here in Canada. It provides a lot of jobs.
It's a huge economic driver of our economies, absolutely, and housing is a central part of our society and the communities that we build. I am hopeful because we've seen focus like we haven't seen. I really encourage governments to move on that GST and PST. It would be a direct improvement to the pocketbook of those that looking to purchase a home of $106,000, to repeat my number. That's huge, and we believe that that would be a great step in the right direction. We've also seen at the provincial and municipal level, governments taking a look at the cost that they put on new housing and how they can reduce it. So change has to happen, and I'm hopeful that it will.
Listen, you got the First Ministers, territorial leaders, and the Prime Minister all meeting in Saskatchewan. I know we're talking a lot about pipelines and infrastructure. Let's hope housing's part of that discussion too.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, thanks so much. Dave Wilkes, President and CEO of the Building Industry and Land Development Association. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
Coming up, we cut a rug with some of Canada's top flamenco dancers.
La Paula no es de
Esmeralda Enrique is one of the top flamenco dancers and choreographers in all of Canada. From the time she was 14, look at this video. She's led an impressive career. She's built 2 of her own dance companies and won numerous accolades, including the Pioneers Award in Art and Dance from the Hispanic Canadian Heritage Council. And she is in studio today alongside 2 more highly successful lifelong flamenco dancers, Virginia Castro and Rocio Conde. Good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Okay, so Esmeralda, flamenco is so beautiful. It is so full body, this experience that we have both as audience members, but as the dancers as well. So I want to ask you, what makes flamenco so special and so different?
It's partly because there's so much variety and there's such a range of possibilities for expression, and it incorporates everything for the dancer. Every joint of the body is moving independently, and we're listening to the music and trying to be on our rhythm and stuff like that. But it also, besides that, there's the singing, the beautiful singing that we dance to. That the music is so gorgeous.
Oh my gosh.
So there's so much richness in there.
That's amazing. For you two, for Virginia, for Rocio, you have been dancing since you were since you were little. What do you now teach? So what do you love most about sharing this dance with others and performing and teaching a whole new generation of dancers?
Well, to me, it's to be able to, show them and make them feel the same things that I feel when I'm dancing, and all those expressions and feelings, and mostly that.
Amazing.
Yeah, for me, it's the beauty of emotional expression. And when you dance flamenco, you feel beautiful and powerful, and you're able to connect to the music. So the connection with the music is very special in flamenco.
That's right.
Well, speaking of connection, not just with the music, but also with audiences, Esmeralda, you have an event coming up called Evening with Esmeralda Enrique Spanish Dance Company. So what will audiences get to experience?
Well, first of all, it's a very intimate theater, so the audience will have a a very intimate experience of seeing very close up, which is not our usual format. We have 2 parts to the evening. The first half will be some presentation of some films that we made during COVID, and the second half will be the live performance.
Oh my gosh, I could listen to you talk all day, by the way. You look like you're dancing. And you're talking about it. Speaking of dancing, we'd love to see what you guys can do. So if you don't mind, will you share something for us today?
Of course.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll step off to the side. You guys take it away.
Pregúntale al platero, 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 que cuánto vale. Que cuánto vale, que cuánto vale. Ya ponen las zarcillas, zarcillas. Platero, 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 que cuánto vale. De la Paula, la Paula, la Paula no es de mi rango.
Oh my gosh, we'll come back in. Ladies, that was spectacular. Oh my gosh, Enrique, or pardon me, Esmeralda, I looked over at you at one point and you had the biggest grin on your face. What are you thinking when you watch them dance?
I just enjoy the art of flamenco so much, and even though I've seen them so many times, each time I see them dance, it just fills me with joy.
It's a new experience. You dance with every fiber of your body. I can hear you breathing heavily, so I won't ask any questions. Ladies, thank you so much for sharing your beautiful talent with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right, one thing that we can all agree on right now, our Canadian pride has been an all-time high for many months. And what better way to celebrate our country than with some good food, because today, cookbook author and food writer Dan Clapson is here in the kitchen, and he's whipping up some tasty dishes with flavors inspired by different parts of Canada. I love this, Dan. Before we dive into it, though, if you want the recipes at home for yourself, scan the QR code on the screen to get them. Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going? What are we starting with here?
I thought we'd start on the West Coast and work our way east. How does that sound?
That works
sounds
great.
Sounds good to me.
Into it.
Now, my sister lives on Vancouver Island, and I love visiting there, and obviously seafood is very plentiful over there.
Yeah.
So I thought I would do a spin on oysters Rockefeller by using West Coast scallops and a spinach mixture that mixes in nori, so seaweed as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
A bit of that West Coast flair.
Oh, I love that. That is awesome. And so how long do these go in the oven for?
So we're gonna go in the oven for about 6 to 8 minutes. We just want to cook, the mixture we're using here is cooked down in some cream and garlic. There's some other spices, and again, nori crushed up in there as well. So we just really need to reheat and get a nice golden brown on top.
Okay.
So I'm gonna get you to help me by spooning some of that on top of each scallop.
Okay, perfect.
And maybe I will dust with breadcrumbs while you do that.
Yeah, I'll do this, you dust.
Yeah.
I love that. How much do I put on? Because I'm prone to putting on a lot.
I mean, if you're hungry, we can put on a lot.
I'm hungry.
Enough to cover.
There we go, enough to cover.
Yeah, that looks
I
great
love this.
to me.
And you know, it's the other side of the country, but I grew up digging clams in Digby, Nova Scotia.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, because my brother was born there. We used to dig clams, great memories.
I love Nova Scotia.
Or scallops, rather, yeah. Scallop capital of the world, many say.
When I was shopping for these yesterday, I saw Digby dulse in the grocery store,
Oh,
which I'm sure you've
cool.
eaten before.
I have indeed,
Yes.
yeah. And
All
West
right.
Coast scallops, awesome.
Beauty.
Love
Oh,
it.
I'm making such a mess here. Okay,
You
breadcrumbs
dusting
on
them
top,
up?
a little
Okay.
dust. And then these are gonna go in the preheated oven.
Okay.
I like to use a low broil. Not every oven has that setting, but if you do, doing low broil at about 400 is great for this.
Okay, go with the low broil.
Yeah, we'll
I like
pop this
that.
in here.
Okay.
And then we'll do.
And through the magic of television.
I don't get to always do this in Western Canada. It is always a treat to do a full swap. And there we go. We have our
Look at this.
beautiful finished product. I think I was more hungry earlier, so I put a bit more spinach on.
I
there,
love
but-
scallops. I'm totally okay with that, Dan.
And if you want to try, you can just dive right in. Even same
Okay.
spoon is fine.
Yeah. So just, should I spoon them into my mouth?
Yeah, I think just
or-
grab that spoon
okay,
there.
Cool, awesome.
You know, the scallop shell is such a great vessel for this too.
Yeah.
You can cover lots of area.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna go for it, honestly. No.
That's what I'd call real nice. Oh my goodness, that's delicious,
That's good,
Dan.
right?
I love that. I'm a scallop fan, and these are some of the best scallops I've ever had. True story.
This is literally my breakfast today, so great. Okay.
Me too. Scallops for breakfast. All right.
Moving swiftly along.
Let's keep it going. What's here and what part of the country is inspiration for this?
So I grew up in Saskatoon. So this is a DIY goulash-style braised beef kind of platter here. I say goulash style because it has the spices of goulash in there.
It's goulash-ish.
Yeah, goulash-ish. Say that 10 times fast.
Thank you,
Or
Dan.
even 3 would be hard. Okay. So in there you have some tomato paste, some marjoram, garlic, obviously.
Yep.
Whatever spices you kind of like is great. For this, I use a sirloin tip roast. You know, it's a more economically priced cut, so it's great. It goes a long way. And you cook it until it's tender, tear it apart, and now I kind of, well, I went a little crazy with the offerings here.
Oh, I love that.
But this is great, and the reason why I chose this to sort of signify like me road tripping through the prairies with my friends is that when you drive through the prairies, you really do drive by so many cattle ranches and stuff, whether you're driving Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, and people on these farms and ranches, they sit and they eat together, and they have big family-style meals. So that's really what I wanted to exemplify here.
Okay, let's get into it.
So I got a bun for you there. I mean, if you want a wrap, you can use a wrap. Some people like lettuce.
I'm gonna go right for the bun if that's cool. Yeah.
And I have
Put some of the
cheese slices.
Yep.
Relish, and I have this right here, an ode to my home province.
What is that?
A Haskap and caramelized onion jam.
Oh, I love onion jam. It's actually delicious.
Yeah, so you get that sort of sweet, savory element. Haskap berries they're not native to Saskatchewan per se. They exist in different provinces, but the University of Saskatchewan in Saskatoon domesticated the crop to allow commercial growers to grow it across the country.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, the fact that you have Haskaps in Ontario you can buy at the grocery store are really only because of, well, not me, but from people that live in the same city as me. So there we go. Smarter than me, I would
I
say.
love that. Okay, while I dig into this, confession time, I love any run-of-the-mill potato salad.
Oh, yeah.
But this is a potato salad with a twist, right? Tell us about it while I get into this.
I think my friends know me well for putting pickle juice and dill pickles into literally anything. So this is a dill pickle potato salad. I mean, I think we can agree that dill pickles are really having a moment still these days. Yeah. And this is my ode to, my dad lives in PEI, I know his family's from there. This is essentially a deconstructed lobster roll as a layered salad. You can see the dill pickle salad, the dill pickle potato salad on the bottom. Oh, yeah. Then we have the lobster salad in the middle. I kind of freshen it up with a bit of fresh herbs, some vinegar, just to kind of make it pop, a bit of honey for sweetness. And then instead of serving it in a bun, I just toast the brioche hot dog bun as a crouton to get like all the flavors all together.
Can I try a bit?
I think so.
Dan, could you do me a solid and pass me one of the napkins that's right there?
I know.
I've dripped all over the set. Classic Teddy.
If you're not making a mess with the slider, then are you really living life?
Dan, this is delicious and very patriotic. Thank you so much for
thanks
being
for having
here.
me. I'm
Again,
excited
if at home you want these recipes, scan the QR code on your screen. Sorry to talk with my mouth full. And thank you so much to food writer and cookbook author Dan Clapson.
Okay, come and get me.
Coming up Monday on Your Morning, one of the stars of the next big Pixar movie, Elio.
I don't know if this is boundary testing or sleep regression or which one of these is you?
I don't know, but I think that one is you.
Okay, do you remember driving school? Do you remember how nervous you were? I mean, I do. Some people feel nervous on the inside, but they're really calm on the outside, and then there are others more like this.
Breathe, that's it. That's it. You got it. Okay. You got it. Okay. I got it. Okay. Not that deep, baby. Not that deep. Right. Not deep. Not deep. Not deep. Not deep. Eyes on the road. Eyes on the road. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Eyes on the road.
You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right.
You all right?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
You all right?
I'm all right.
You all right, man?
I'm all right.
And now.
Now what? No, nobody.
Yeah, so good. 0 to 60 Driving Academy. It is a brand new show that centers around a driving school inspired by Steve Lawrence's real life experience as a driving instructor. And this show is making history. 0 to 60 is Atlantic Canada's first ever Black-led family sitcom. The show was co-created by Alexander McLean, a stunt performer and actor who stars as Steve's daughter. Steve and Alexander, both co-creators, join us this morning. Good to have you both on the show.
Hey, how you doing? Thank you for having us.
Honestly, this is such a great concept for a show. Steve, I've got to ask you, you are a co-creator of the show. You were a driving instructor in real life at some point. What was the wildest experience you had with a student?
The wildest.
Were you ever scared in the car?
At first, for first 5-10 years, I was scared at first, but we have a brake on my side, so it was okay. As long as I got a brake, it's not like the parents when they're trying to look for a brake. I have one.
You have a brake.
So that ain't happening. Done.
Yeah. Did you use a lot?
A few times.
A few times?
Some people drive on the wrong side of the road and things. You know, it happens.
Wait, they drive on the wrong side of the road?
Because some people come from other countries, as you know.
Oh, I see.
From
Okay,
England
yes.
somewhere, and they get in the car, and
Yeah.
a few great experiences for sure.
Yeah, using that brake.
Girl, yep.
Alexander, you are a co-creator, you're co-writer, actor, producer on this show. You're from Halifax, correct? Yeah. And Steve, you're from Dartmouth?
Yeah, I live in Dartmouth, yeah.
Okay, and so how did you two meet?
Well,
Tell the story, girl.
my dad actually knew Steve when Steve was younger, but we didn't really meet until a few years ago on another one of Jonathan Torrance's shows. And we still didn't really talk about how my dad knew him until we were in the writer's room for this show. Yeah.
That was really strange.
And?
It was strange.
What's the story?
Strange. First thing I heard was, do I call you Steve or Stevie? And I went, what? Who's this kid? She knows something. Okay, and then but just before that, Jonathan said to me, "We got this new young writer coming up. Alex, she's really good, Steve. We should bring her on." I went, "Okay, sure." And then she told me, "Steve or Steve," and I went, "Oh, Steve." And then, "Oh, you know my father." Oh.
Oh.
Oh, was really shocked to my system, but yes, her father and I were friends, and yes.
Friends from back in the day.
Yeah, back when we were teenagers, yeah.
Isn't that funny? Because when you say you called him Stevie, if somebody calls me my last name Deluce, I know exactly what era of my life.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know the era of life, and then I get to piece it together.
Me.
Yeah, that's a high school thing. And then there are other nicknames too. If they whip out, I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah, you really know me.
Yeah, you really, which I could not say on air.
Exactly.
Do you have any nicknames for you?
I mean, my dad used to call me Chuck. I don't know where that came from. Yeah.
Come on, Chuck.
Yeah, it's so strange.
That's really funny. And he's never explained it?
No.
Great mouth.
He never did.
The greatest secret of all time. Let's talk about the premise of the show, because yes, I mentioned driving school, but it's also so lovely, the relationship between father and daughter on this show. I want to play our viewers a little clip. Here we go.
Fine. I'll conduct the road test for you.
You?
Really?
You and the road test don't really get along together.
I think the word you were looking for was thanks.
I know you didn't hang up on me. You know what? Oh boy, if I would have hung up my father, he would have done slapped the taste off my mouth.
Fine.
It's so true. It's so true.
So true.
I know with my kids now, my husband and I are like, I would never have said that to my parents. It's like one of those things.
Exactly.
Your on-screen chemistry is so awesome. How much work do you have to do off-screen to have that work, or is it just, it's a natural thing?
Honestly, none. We've heard that we're kind of a sitcom. Myself, Stevie, and Devin, who plays my brother, baby Steve.
Yeah.
We've been told we're like a sitcom off the air. It's just, we're from the community, right? So we all kind of knew each other. We've been on sets before a little bit. So it was just like that. We just clicked.
It's so great.
Just have some fun. Yeah, just like she said, we just clicked. Had a bunch of fun off screen and on screen. We just stupid.
Yeah, but it's the kind of stupid fun you like, right?
Exactly.
And it's great to watch, too.
It's all natural, nobody's forcing anything.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun, everybody a lot of respect outside and on our set. So.
And that's the key. It's respecting each other, both professionally and personally. It's great to have you both on. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you very much.
0 to 60 Driving Academy is now streaming on Bell 5. TV1.
All right, that's it for us on Your Morning Weekend. Don't forget, you can scan the QR codes for Your Morning, the newsletter, and listen to more conversations on Your Morning the podcast.
And we have another great week coming up. On Monday, we're going to speak with one of the stars of Elio, the next big Pixar hit.
Tuesday, we'll have the hottest Canadian-made toys you'll want to be picking up this summer.
And then on Wednesday, registered dietitian Nishta Saxena takes on some of the biggest TikTok nutrition trends.
Nice. On Thursday, the countdown to kick off, Canada's men's national team will play their first ever World Cup game on home soil 1 year from the day.
And Friday, fire up the grill. Chef Sang Kim returns for a Father's Day barbecue.
Sounds delicious. We can't wait for next week. We'll see you then.